things like that, like things you would never think of, crazy stuff. We said yes a lot to mostly everything and everywhere.
Welcome to Secret America, where the glamour fades and the truth begins. Subscribe now and don't miss a single story. They weren't just bandmates, they were brothers in boots riding that wild climb from Jersey dive bars to global fame. But somewhere between the platinum plaques and the non-stop tours, something snapped. And now, Richie Sambora is finally speaking up. For years he stayed quiet, but not anymore. What happened behind the glam and the smiles? What didn't Jon Bon Jovi say when Richie walked away? This wasn't just a fame fight, it hit way deeper. Long before the spotlight, Richie and Jon were two hungry Jersey musicians grinding through local bars, VFW halls, and backyard gigs. Richie came out of Woodbridge, Jon out of Sayreville, both shaped by hard-working neighborhoods that taught them grit from day one. Jon had the wild ones, Richie rolled with bands like Message, and both were chasing a dream people said was impossible. What pulled them together wasn't just ambition, it was their love for real storytellers like Springsteen and the blues-heavy style of Led Zeppelin. When Richie joined Bon Jovi in 1983, everything shifted. He didn't just fill a guitar spot, he changed the whole sound with his soulful playing and instant chemistry with Jon. From early shows at the Fast Lane in Asbury Park, their connection hit different. Richie's knack for harmonies blended perfectly with Jon's bold, radio-ready voice, creating that big, emotional heartland rock style the world knows today. His talkbox work on Livin' on a Prayer, the gritty riffs on Wanted Dead or Alive, and the emotion in I'll Be There For You shaped the band's identity for generations. Offstage, they were just as tight, laughing in hallways, moving like a brotherhood on tour, holding each other down through the chaos of fame. Richie became the calm, the grounding force, the one who helped Jon breathe through the madness. It painted a picture of two artists bonded by trust, history, and the grind they survived together. But inside that tight bond, a quiet hierarchy was already taking shape. Even when they seemed perfectly united, Jon was getting pushed, or naturally placed, as the face of the whole brand, while Richie held it down just outside the spotlight. Even though he co-wrote major hits and created some of their strongest musical moments, he stayed committed to the vision they built together, never stepping out of line. Their early grind wasn't just about music. It was two Jersey kids catching a once-in-a-lifetime rhythm that carried them from tiny garages to massive arenas. But as their friendship deepened, something powerful was forming behind the scenes. The real soul of the sound. When Bon Jovi's identity locked in during the mid-'80s, Richie wasn't just playing guitar, he was shaping the heartbeat of the band. His tone, his phrasing, his whole vibe cut through the glam metal noise of that era, grounding everything in something more emotional and timeless. His bluesy feel mixed with rock swagger created solos that told stories, not just filled space. At their creative peak, albums like Slippery When Wet in New Jersey were loaded with polished radio hits, but Richie's fingerprints were everywhere. His arrangements gave the songs warmth, bite, and that hard-to-teach emotional feel. Tracks like Never Say Goodbye and I'll Be There For You showed how he could build tension and heart straight into the guitar lines, while his harmonies lifted every hook into anthem mode. Richie wasn't just backing Jon, he was completing the emotional structure of their biggest records. His magic came from instinct and timing, knowing when to stay quiet, when to explode, when to slip under Jon's voice, and when to let the guitar scream. That balance became a trademark of Bon Jovi's classic sound, adding depth the glossy image could never cover. Critics and musicians always knew Richie was the underrated architect of the band's emotional core. Even if history kept putting Jon out front with the mic, while Richie's legendary talkbox moment on Livin' on a Prayer became the soundtrack of a generation. That talkbox solo became a symbol of a band that could blend flash with real substance. Richie's guitar work kept electrifying Bon Jovi's biggest songs, proving that behind every powerhouse frontman stands a guitarist who can make emotions scream through strings. But as Bon Jovi turned into one of the biggest bands on the planet, the shine started showing cracks. From the late 80s into the early 2000s, Jon Bon Jovi's rise as the official face of the group didn't just boost branding. It changed the whole internal dynamic. Richie, once an equal creative partner, slowly felt pushed to the side when it came to the band's direction, their image, and even their long-term legacy. The shift wasn't loud or messy. It was slow, quiet, and steady. Suddenly, Richie found himself in a background role he never signed up for, even though he helped build the entire foundation. As the pressure of constant touring and non-stop hit-making grew heavier, the imbalance hit harder. Collaborations started disappearing, and so did the space for honest conversations. Richie later admitted that just being in the room, rehearsing, recording, grinding, didn't mean his voice mattered anymore. The band looked united on stage, but behind closed doors it felt disconnected, almost hollow. And when Richie's personal struggles hit, addiction battles, a tough divorce, and the search for some kind of emotional stability, the band environment didn't give him the support he needed. What cut the deepest wasn't any one argument. It was that feeling of floating through the group like he didn't matter. Whenever he spoke up with ideas or concerns, he felt ignored or outnumbered. The brotherhood they once had was replaced by a tight, controlled hierarchy where Richie didn't feel secure at all. There was no big explosive breakup, no wild interviews, no dramatic headlines. It just faded in silence. For years he kept touring, recording, and showing up for the band, but emotionally he was drifting further and further away. So when Richie finally stepped out in 2013, it wasn't a sudden shock. It was the final moment of a long, painful build-up inside a space that no longer felt creative, collaborative, or safe for him anymore. The pressure inside that band wasn't loud or explosive. It was slow, corrosive, and it quietly broke apart one of rock's strongest creative partnerships. Then came April 2013 in Calgary, when fans showed up expecting another massive Bon Jovi show, only to hear the shocking announcement that Richie Sambora wouldn't be performing. No warning, no details, just personal reasons, and the whole world was left guessing. At first, people thought it was a short break or a private family situation, but when weeks turned into months, it was clear something serious had snapped behind the scenes. Richie later admitted he had hit a breaking point. Years of non-stop touring, creative clashes, and feeling pushed aside had drained him emotionally and physically. In later interviews, including his 2024 feature in the New York Post, he called the environment toxic, saying the band felt more like a business machine than a brotherhood. He said he felt unheard and boxed in, and the non-stop grind left him spiritually wiped out. And one of his biggest reasons for walking? His daughter Ava Richie said he needed to be present, something the tour life just couldn't give him anymore, and that responsibility pulled harder than any spotlight ever could. But the part that cut him deepest came after he stepped away. Richie says he didn't even get direct word from the band. He found out online that Bon Jovi went on without him and hired Phil X as his replacement. That hit him like a punch to the gut. After decades of loyalty, he didn't just feel pushed aside. He felt erased without even one respectful conversation. He later said, "It was like I disappeared and nobody even called." And that silence shocked fans too, because Richie wasn't just a guitarist. He was the heart, the soul, the emotional edge inside those legendary songs. For the first time, Richie has finally started opening up publicly, and his story makes something clear. He didn't leave because of one argument or one bad moment. It was years of feeling creatively unappreciated and personally overlooked. His 2024 apology and reflections show the truth. His exit was about survival, about family, and about finally stepping away from a place that didn't feel like home anymore. Family over fame. That's what made him walk, no matter how loud the crowd cheered. Ava was growing up fast, and Richie Sambora realized his non-stop touring was pulling him farther from her, exactly when she needed him most. "You don't get those years back," he said, and he refused to become a ghost in her life. Trying to balance fatherhood with a worldwide touring schedule had become impossible, and Richie knew it. Music had given him everything, the fame, the money, the legacy. But it had also taken a heavy toll on his real life. With Ava going through big changes, including the fallout from her parents' high-profile split, Richie understood that being present wasn't optional. It was necessary. "Being a rock star didn't mean anything if I couldn't be a good dad," he explained with raw honesty. Fans were split. Some slammed him for stepping away mid-tour, calling it unprofessional, while others praised him for choosing family over fame, saying it took real courage to walk away from the machine. Looking back, Richie says leaving wasn't some emotional outburst. It was a deliberate choice rooted in responsibility and love. A decade later, he says his real legacy isn't on any stage. It's in the tight bond he built with Ava. He often speaks proudly about her, saying raising her into a smart, creative, grounded adult means more than any platinum record ever could. Leaving the Bon Jovi family shook the band and shocked fans, but Richie has never regretted putting family first. "I can play guitar forever, but I only get one chance to be her dad," he said. His goodbye might have been quiet, but the message behind it was loud. After he left, the silence between him and Jon Bon Jovi said everything. No public fights, no messy interviews, just a cold distance that spoke louder than any headline. Insiders say their bond had been cracking long before the tour, and 2013 was simply the moment it all finally broke. On the outside, the band still looked smooth and united, but behind closed doors the tension was boiling quietly. Creative clashes, emotional distance, and resentment were stacking up, inch by inch. One of the clearest signs of the split was how decisions started getting made. Richie Sambora, once a key voice in everything, suddenly found himself pushed out of major conversations. He later admitted he felt less like a founding member and more like a hired hand. Studio sessions went from warm and collaborative to cold and businesslike, almost transactional. In his 2024 Yahoo Entertainment interview, Richie said he reached a point where he didn't feel heard at all, saying the whole thing stopped feeling like a band and started feeling like a corporation. Even though frustration was eating at him, Richie stayed publicly respectful for years, keeping quiet about the emotional bruises the whole situation left behind. But in recent interviews, he finally opened up, calling the environment draining, emotionally and creatively, and saying the vibe had turned toxic long before he walked away. The rift wasn't one blow-up. It was a slow burn that hollowed everything out. No closure, just silence. Meanwhile, Jon Bon Jovi barely spoke on the situation through the years. He said Richie's exit was tough, but he never went deeper. Instead, he focused on keeping the band moving with Phil X stepping into the guitarist role. Their decision to avoid a public feud preserved the band's reputation, but it also left fans confused for a whole decade. How did such a legendary duo end things without even a real conversation? Then in 2024, after more than 10 years of silence, Richie Sambora finally shared his truth in emotional interviews with Yahoo Entertainment and the New York Post. He gave a heartfelt apology to the fans and to Jon himself. "I just disappeared, man. "I ghosted," he admitted. It was the first time he openly took accountability for the suddenness of his exit. Richie said he wished he had talked to Jon, explained things better, and not left people wondering. But he also made it clear, the decision didn't come from ego, anger, or one random argument. It came from years of feeling stifled, unheard, and pushed further into the background. Even though he helped write some of Bon Jovi's biggest hits, he felt himself fading into a supporting role he never agreed to. Richie Sambora always said his exit wasn't about burning bridges. It was about saving his peace. His 2024 apology finally shifted how fans and industry people looked at what happened. For years, rumors swirled about tension behind the scenes, but neither Richie nor Jon ever spelled out the details. When Richie finally spoke, he gave the story a human side, admitting he stood by his choice to protect his mental health and be there for his family. But he also regretted how many people he left in the dark. His honesty hit longtime fans hard. The moment he realized how many people were confused and hurt left him emotional, and that vulnerability connected with people instantly. But Jon Bon Jovi still hasn't responded to the apology directly. He kept things professional, saying a reunion wasn't realistic, though he held no anger. It was a calm, almost resigned truth, the kind that shows closure, even if it's not reunion-level peace. Richie's apology finally closed a chapter that had been stuck open for a decade. Fans took it as a sign something might happen, maybe even a comeback moment with Jon. But Jon's reaction was thoughtful, not hopeful. He appreciated Richie's words, he respected their history, but he didn't pretend time hadn't changed things. "We had our run," he told the Sunday Times. A quiet, honest ending to a partnership that simply shifted out of sync. This wasn't about drama or blame anymore. It was about growth. In recent years, Jon has been on his own journey, dealing with a tough vocal cord issue that left him unsure if he'd ever fully regain the voice that made him a global icon. The recovery process, surgery, months of silence, and the reality of aging in an industry built on perfection changed him. The old bravado faded, replaced by a more thoughtful, steady version of himself. Now, Jon isn't chasing the past. He's trying to hold on to what still matters without destroying his balance. His mindset today mirrors the vibe of Forever, 2024, reflective, mature, filled with the weight of years spent in rock and roll. And while fans love the idea of Richie returning, Jon's focus has shifted, and a reunion, no matter how nostalgic, might shake the stability he's finally found. Jon Bon Jovi has fought hard to rebuild his life and career, and at this point, nostalgia just isn't his priority. He's focused on the present, on who he is now, not who he used to be. Closing the chapter with Richie isn't him erasing the past. It's him honoring it without getting trapped in it. Whenever asked, he speaks respectfully about Richie, never bitter, never harsh. But he's clearly centered on the version of Bon Jovi that exists today, with new music, new limits, and a new mindset. This approach reflects a bigger shift happening with a lot of veteran artists. They're no longer chasing reunions to prove anything. They're choosing reinvention, boundaries, and peace. In a world obsessed with comebacks, from old TV reunions to massive band revivals, Jon's quiet refusal to rewind the past takes real strength. "I'm not interested in being a tribute act to myself," he said in 2023. And that line says everything. To fans, a Bon Jovi Sambora reunion feels like a rock fairy tale. Two legends back on stage, reclaiming the magic. But the reality is way more complicated. Time has changed everything, musically, emotionally, practically. It's been over a decade since Richie walked away, and both men have built lives in totally different directions. What worked in 1986 doesn't automatically work in 2024, and both of them know it, even if fans hate to admit it. Richie has leaned into solo work and fatherhood, choosing a life rooted in balance, not burnout. His music now carries blues, soul, and reflection, far from the stadium-shaking style of Bon Jovi's prime. Meanwhile, Jon has shifted toward a more mature, adult contemporary sound, leaving the high-gloss rock of the old days behind. Their creative paths just don't match anymore, and forcing them together for nostalgia could actually flatten the legacy they worked so hard to build. Then there's the health side. Jon's vocal recovery has been tough, and pushing through old-school, high-energy reunion shows might do real damage. Richie, too, has said he's more careful now. No more shows that push him past what's healthy long-term. And even if the logistics worked, the chemistry might not. Decades of emotional weight don't dissolve with a handshake and a rehearsal. Rebuilding that trust would take huge effort, and neither side seems ready to dive into that kind of emotional labor just for the sake of a reunion. In the end, trying to force a comeback might actually harm the legacy fans want to protect. Sometimes the most powerful tribute to history is knowing when not to recreate it. The real strength of the Bon Jovi story comes from what Jon and Richie created together during their prime, not from trying to drag the past back just to satisfy nostalgia. Today, both men have built new lives, new paths, and the idea of a reunion feels more like a fan fantasy than something grounded in where they actually are now. Sometimes the myth of a reunion is stronger than the reunion itself. Music veterans have said for years that nostalgia can be dangerous when it's the only thing driving a comeback. Bon Jovi is no exception. Producer Bob Rock even said in a 2023 Rolling Stone panel that some reunions only work if the artists have something new to say. But others crumble under the pressure of what they used to be. For Bon Jovi, whose legacy was formed at a very specific moment in music history, that warning hits even harder. Fans often want the emotional time capsule, the MTV era, the big hair, the arena anthems. But bringing that whole lineup back in 2024 would expose what time naturally changes in every artist. The fantasy is frozen in the 80s. The men are not. And while the spotlight moved on, Richie Sambora found something deeper off stage, a new kind of legacy. Since leaving Bon Jovi, he's rebuilt himself not just as a guitarist, but as a father, a solo artist, and a man focused on healing. In his 2024 interviews with Yahoo Entertainment and the New York Post, Richie opened up about therapy, facing old decisions, and finding peace away from the chaos of global fame. He admitted to mistakes, including how he left, but said those choices were part of protecting himself and reclaiming his life. For Richie, stepping away wasn't just walking out of a band. It was stepping back into his own identity. His biggest focus now is family, especially his daughter Ava, whose modeling and acting career is taking off. Richie talks often about how proud he is of her and how being a present dad was one of the biggest reasons he left the non-stop pressure of Bon Jovi. He's still making music too, small shows, charity performances, hints of unreleased tracks, not chasing stadiums, but keeping the creativity alive on his own terms. Richie didn't lose himself when he stepped away. He found the version of himself that fame kept pushing into the shadows. Richie Sambora has poured his energy into projects that bring him real joy now, not the pressure-packed expectations of global fame. And even though he regrets how things ended with Bon Jovi, he still carries pride in what they built together. He often talks about the incredible run they had, how those songs changed lives, and how that legacy will always belong to both of them. Even in his newer interviews, it's clear he still has love for the band, and for Jon Bon Jovi too. "We built something amazing," he reflected, reminding everyone that history can't be erased. This honesty and humility have only made fans love him more. For so many people, Richie will always be the emotional heartbeat of Bon Jovi, the bluesy soul woven into all that bombastic arena energy. His harmonies, riffs, and songwriting shaped an era. And even though he walked away quietly, his fingerprint sits on every iconic track. He may have ghosted, but he was never forgotten. Richie's journey after Bon Jovi lines up with a bigger movement happening among classic rock legends, a shift toward a more human, grounded idea of success. Just like Dave Grohl sliding into mentorship or Bruce Springsteen diving into memoirs and Broadway, Sambora chose raw truth over spectacle. In 2024, he said he was inspired by artists like Eric Clapton and Bonnie Raitt, who found deeper purpose in quieter moments later in their careers. "It's not about being loud anymore. It's about being real," he said, and fans felt that. By reclaiming his story, Richie connected with a whole generation looking for honesty instead of flash. His evolution isn't about chasing radio hits or reliving old glories. It's about strength, reinvention, and the courage to grow up on his own terms no matter how bright the spotlight used to be. If this story opened your eyes the way it did ours, make sure to like the video, drop a comment, and subscribe to Secret America channel for more untold truths from the world of rock. Got a favorite Bon Jovi memory or a Richie solo moment? Tell us, and don't go anywhere. Click the next video on your screen to keep the music and the story.